everyone. Welcome to Sportstar Extras. This is a very unique episode because we are going to talk about the most deadly thing in cricket, which is speed. And to talk about, we have the nicest guys around because whenever we talk about New Zealand and New Zealand cricketers, the first thing that comes to our mind is they are like really nice guys who play their cricket very, very seriously. It doesn't mean that even if they don't look at you or stare back at you, that doesn't mean that they are not competitive. They are probably the most competitive guys I've ever seen on the field. And joining me today is Lockie Ferguson and along with his brother, Mitch Ferguson. Both of them have been playing cricket since their childhood. Lockie is right now a professional player. Mitch is a software developer right now. But he's also equally invested in the sport. They have designed an app together. And we're going to talk about that app to start with. Welcome, Lockie. Welcome, Mitch. How's it been in New Zealand? How's it going despite all the COVID problems and sport and no sport? Constantly, there's been shutdowns. How are you guys doing there?
We've been good. Yeah, we've been fortunate. We had a couple of little hiccup lockdowns, but yeah, because we're an island so far away, I don't think many people know where we are in the world. So fortunately, we've been lucky with COVID. Our government's locked us down pretty tightly, and so yeah, we're pretty much roaming free in New Zealand, which has been great. And I'm sure you've been seeing some of our New Zealand games against Aussie of late. We had a couple behind closed doors, but most of our games have all been in front of fans, which is awesome.
That's amazing to hear. I hope things slowly come back on track. Moving to Machineroad, this is for you, Mitch. I know that you have been a tearaway quick bowler back in the day too. I mean, I've read a lot about both you guys playing together. Right now, tell us that what prompted you to make something like Machineroad, and how important is analytics and software, to improve as a overall cricketer, not only a fast bowler.
Yeah, well, I think it was always, it was always a bit of a passion of mine. Was obviously fast bowling, like you say, and unfortunately, kind of my career ended a lot sooner than what Lockie's did, obviously. But kind of making my way into IT, I guess, really opened my eyes to the opportunities. And one of the biggest things that we've seen, or that, well, both Lockie and I have seen as we come up through the grades, is being able to kind of scout yourself and get information and insights about how you're performing is very, very difficult. Also, a lot of people don't necessarily have access to coaches or even sometimes clubs around the world as well, whether it's down to kind of location or just generally down to cost because it's quite expensive. So a lot of what we're trying to do is obviously provide a bit of a platform that can start to gain some insights about how you're performing. And we're really hoping to try and find some real undiscovered talent out there that hopefully will progress to the international stage of cricket.
And also, I was just checking that video that Lockie had done. I'm guessing you can map the speeds, definitely. That's the basic thing. And also, there was something about lengths. So how do you work on your length with that app? I mean, for example, if a fast bowler is bowling a good length or a half length or a short of length, how does that app help you, try and see what you have done in that one spell of net session? This is for the both of you. You can answer in tandem.
Yeah, that's cool. I could start. So I guess the key thing for us, obviously speed, having Lockie as one of the directors is a big part of what we're doing. But it's not the only thing we're doing. And, we know not everyone's going to be fast bowlers. Not everyone necessarily wants to be a fast bowler. And obviously there's some pretty great spinners in India, as well as some good quick bowlers as well. So the big thing for us was, yes, capturing the speed is a big part. And even from a spin perspective, speed can be very valuable as well, right, in regards to kind of how you flight balls and how you somewhat try to deceive the batsman. But what we're trying to do is obviously take some of the, everyone's familiar with Hawkeye, everyone's familiar with that sort of insight that you see on broadcasting. So it's really about, trying to take that sort of experience, which is delivered by, 5 to 6 pretty high spec cameras, and trying to deliver that through a mobile device that's an everyday mobile device. And so really like the experience that you kind of would expect to get is fairly similar, where we're kind of capturing it from behind from basically where the umpire is standing. and we're able to capture those trajectory lines. We're capturing the bounce points where we actually start to build out a bit of a heat map in regards to where you are, I guess, bowling the ball. And then I guess a big part of what we're trying to do is, Lockie can probably elaborate on this a lot more, but, we know, when you start to look at pro teams, they like to scout opposition. Sometimes it's very difficult in cricket, especially with the amount of games that the opposition play in like different countries. Sometimes you only play like 2 times in New Zealand or 2 times in India. So there's not really a lot of data. So a lot of what we're trying to do is provide a platform that enables you to scout yourself a bit more effectively. And that's what we're trying to do in that sort of sense.
Moving to Lockie, you've practiced with the app, and tell us about the benefits that you have seen in the KKR nets or as well as otherwise. And what's the plan to because you've been playing a lot of cricket in India, and you are going to play a lot of cricket in India in the future too, also in T20 Blast and elsewhere. How do both of you guys plan to take this app forward and make it more global and make it perhaps more available to all the fast bowlers in the world? And I'm sure Lockie will be probably endorsing that very happily to all his mates in and around the world.
Yeah, look, I think in sport in general, there's been obviously a quite big push in the last few years around getting live analytics on yourself, getting analytics of any sort around your skill base, around the opposition you're playing, just to try and get that little 1% edge so that when you come to a game, you might work out something that might get Virat Kohli out, for instance. But within cricket, it's quite a bizarre sport where conditions play such a huge role in the outcome of the game. The pitches are different. New Zealand conditions, of course, it swings more here. In England, it swings. In India, it swings less, but of course, it turns. It's much hotter. So when we talk about scouting, it's very hard to compare Virat Kohli playing in New Zealand to him playing in India because he has to change his technique, and that's why he's so good. Changes his game plan, changes his technique, and that actually starts from him working out what works well for him. With my career, I did a very similar thing where I started out scouting every opposition, and once again, I look at Virat Kohli and look at all the videos, and the guy plays 360. So when I'm at the top of my mark running into bowl to him, I've got no idea where to bowl because I've seen the videos of how good he is, and so therefore I'm not going to be able to execute. So I went away from that plan. I went to focusing on my own personal game. What do I do well? What's my best ball? What's my best change up? What's another thing I can add to my bow? And actually only work on sort of 3 key elements of my game. And then from there, once I know that I can do those things well, I'll adjust those to the players depending on who they are. And I think the basis of our app has been built around that with conversations with Mitchie, how we can use this great technology. And it's great that we can have this technology for everyday users and then adjust that to what's actually useful. How can we actually make someone better in a week, in a month, in a year by focusing on what they do well? And I think if you look in sport in general, our vision is for Machineroad to be at every net session so that you can go to nets, set it up, train, finish the session and actually go, how did I go today? I was 60% good length, or I hit my Yorkers 20% of the time or 80% of the time. And every session that you're training, because of course you're training to get better, you can actually give yourself a score and go, okay, I was good today, I was bad, why? And then that sort of learning process shortens that loop of trying to work out what you're not good at, trying to find an area where you're trying to work on and then improve it. That sort of loop becomes a lot shorter. And we truly believe that Machineroad's, the step to help in that.
Awesome. Before I quickly move on to a little bit of more generic questions about your test cricket, the last one on this app, which I wanted to ask both of you, that today, since I was discussing the T20 World Cup is around the corner and also this test championship happening. So how does this app help bowlers in all formats in terms of ODI and T20 more or less on a similar mold, 4 and 10 overs? But then when it comes to test cricket, just like longer spells. So is there any special feature in the app which will primarily help red ball bowlers because they are trying to assess their workload and they're trying to assess the different kinds of spells that they're bowling in different sessions depending on match situations? So anything on those lines in this app?
For sure. I mean, I think you look across the different formats. Of course, T20 is all about the execution, trying to hit the Yorkers, but even more so potentially in test cricket, it's all about execution too, because you're trying to build pressure. You can't release that pressure. So within the app, we have ball tracking. So the ball, you can see the tracking line. So you can see if you're bowling an outswinger or an in-swinger. And so you can actually work out what's working with my technique, which balls are swinging more. Of course, at the end of the session, you'll get, your percentage of your good length. And so I suppose with test cricket, you're probably training, or first class cricket, you're training to bowl, 90% of your balls in that good length area. And then, I think from a bowling loads point of view, it's a big push for us to try create education around bowling loads and to try protect fast bowlers. And once again, this app's not just for fast bowlers, spin bowlers, very similar, and they work on loads at the international level too. So it's just trying to give you visibility on what you're doing with your cricket so that you can actually track and train. You can work out what's working for you, and you can hopefully improve a lot faster, and you can adjust the platform, and that's why it's so well set up. You can adjust it for your own game.
Awesome. I'll quickly move on to some basic questions about Lockie, because we've been a big fan of Lockie Ferguson ever since the Cricket World Cup 2019. And how's your body holding up after the stress fracture? I know it's been a tough season for you. When do you see yourself return to the field and bowl those cranky spells?
Yeah, frustrating for sure. I hadn't had a stress fracture since I was 17. So I think if you look across world sport after the sort of COVID lockdown where players weren't, playing at high intensities, the body sort of goes away from being adjusted to that. And so a lot of sportsmen were at higher risk of injuries, and there just were more injuries in international sport. Unfortunately, I was one of those casualties. But yeah, I'm back playing. I played my first game of club cricket on Saturday, just been, for the Parnell Peaches. Shout out to the team. And yeah, so I'm looking to get back, hopefully to 100% within the next sort of month, and then certainly leading into IPL and onto the World Cup at the end of the year. So it's a step-by-step process, but now I'm in very good hands here in New Zealand, so hopefully I'll be back on the park soon.
The next question is partly related to the functioning of the app as well as injuries. I mean, I know that it's very difficult for a fast bowler to control the temptation to bowl faster. I mean, I know for a lot of guys in India who really like bowling fast despite injuries. I'm sure you have heard of Varun Aaron. I mean, he was one of the tearaway quicks in 2011-12. Even till now, after so many surgeries, he likes bowling quick. So how difficult is it to control that temptation of bowling speed, knowing that injuries can be a hindrance to a fast bowler's growth? How do you strike that balance between line length and speed and everything else?
Look, I think that's pretty personal level. Certainly for me, when I was getting injured a lot, I had to adjust things early on in my career because I couldn't just keep running in and just bowling, as you said, like a tearaway quick. And so if you keep getting injured all the time, it's frustrating, and you want to stay on the park longer. So you try to work out how you can stay on the park. But I'll never tell a bowler not to bowl quickly, because I got told that when I was younger, and I don't think that I'd be able to bowl the speeds I do now if I had stopped trying to bowl quickly. But having said that, once again, Mitch and me talk a lot about the education around fast bowling, and I think with internet, YouTube, our app, there's so much opportunity for players to learn, and if they can get that education around, okay, today I can actually bowl quick, but maybe Thursday, Saturday, I just pull it back a little bit and understand my body. There's still a big growth area in that. And so, yeah, I think it's hard for us to say from an app point of view to exactly give that information right now, but certainly in our thoughts. But yeah, I think education is probably the key.
That's amazing. And Test cricket, World Test Championship, New Zealand in the finals, and I know that you played that one test in Perth, and after that you got injured, unfortunately. But do you see yourself in the Test squad for New Zealand? Because it's a really good squad, and it's a tough competition out there with Trent Bolt, Kyle Jamieson, you have Wagner, and all these guys out there. So how motivated do you feel when you see such competitive guys around you, and does that help you to bring the best in you?
Definitely, yeah. I don't think you ever want to play on a team that you easily make and then you lose. I certainly want to be playing for the team that wins, and to get into the team that wins, you've got good players that you've got to compete against, and they're all very good mates of mine. And look, it's you get complacent in teams where it's easy to make. So I certainly think the Black Caps is in an amazing sort of spot at the moment where we've got a great crop of talent, but also players who work very hard. So it's exciting as a New Zealand cricket fan myself, and I'm sure Mitch will agree. it's an exciting time to be part of New Zealand cricket. But yeah, I do want to play Test cricket. But the next step for me is to get back on the park and get back to playing. And then, yeah, those sort of things will take care of themselves.
Is Mitch that kind of a strict elder brother who tries and tells you don't do this and don't do that, and it probably helps you get to the finer parts? I think I'll let Mitch answer that.
With everything but cricket.
Yeah, well, I personally try to stay quite far away from giving Lockie advice about anything to do with cricket. He's far exceeded my knowledge in that sort of space, but just in general, I think like we don't tend to talk too much about well, we obviously both like and love cricket. We love watching the Black Caps play as well. But a lot of what we do to try and kind of keep us on the straight and narrow is kind of being there to support each other, and this has been a great way, kind of working on this project to both bring our skills that we both have and that we're both passionate about together to try and bring something that's pretty amazing to the wider cricketing community. So definitely not giving him too much advice. I think he would tell me to go away and probably wouldn't speak to me.
And we were talking about the conditions in New Zealand and conditions in New Zealand and conditions elsewhere in the world. And definitely every country has its own set of home conditions and home advantage. Recently, England was playing in India, and there was a lot of talk about the pitch and how India has spinning tracks. But in Sena countries, in New Zealand, England, the conditions are more for the fast bowlers, swinging conditions and hard pitches and all that. So Lockie and Mitch, how do you see this home advantage thing? I mean, Mitch can talk from the point of view of a cricket educationist. You can talk from the point of view of a professional player. That how do you see this concept of home advantage? I mean, like, should India not play spin in spinning tracks and they should go for fast bowlers? There's been a lot of talk in the England media about this, and I wanted to know from you because you've played in both the countries.
You can't remove that. Like, cricket is the sport that the conditions play such a huge factor, and I think there's just no way you can remove that unless you play on AstroTurf, which is just silly. But certainly, it is interesting playing in India, where if you win the toss, you bat straight away, and often you'll have probably a 65% chance of winning. And then in New Zealand, if you bat first, you'll probably have that opposite chance or the same chance of losing. But I don't know. I think that's in cricket, it's pretty amazing that you get international players who are successful across all countries, and I guess that's where the true talent and hard work sort of comes out, that those players can perform in whichever country. And I think it does get glossed over a little bit how challenging it is for a Kiwi to go to India and play in, the first game I played in India was like 50 degrees at night.
Yep.
And I'd just been in bed sick for 2 weeks, and so like for a Kiwi, I was just like, what the hell's just happened kind of thing. And then you're expected to go and play. And I lost about 2.5 kgs playing in an hour and a half, which is crazy.
Whoa.
But then flip side of that, you get the Indian boys, and we always love to chuck them down south to Otago where it's freezing cold, and you can see them with 5 jumpers on and hand warmers, and then the catch gets hit and they're just like, and they drop it, and then so
that's the fun of I'm saying that's the fun of Test cricket.
Man.
I mean that's how you,
course,
as a,
when you bowl short balls and they're cold, then it hurts more, and so I don't know. That's the epic part of the game. You don't get that in any other sport. You literally do not get that in any other sport. So we're very unique in that sense, and we're very privileged. But I don't think we should try to change that. I agree that there should probably be some restrictions, like that the pitches don't turn crazy from day one. But hey, if it happens every now and then gives the media something to talk about.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'll quickly move on to IPL and KKR, and I'm really thankful to the KKR guys who's conducted the interview. So, and I remember watching the IPL. We were watching it on television because none of us were allowed there. But then there was one super over you bowled brilliant Yorkers, and you've been a Yorker specialist, if I can say it like that, like our Jasprit Bumrah is. So what are the pointers that you have learned from playing in the IPL and playing for KKR, especially with with guys like Owen Morgan around? And tell us about your learning experience as a player playing that season of IPL.
Well, if you want to be a good Yorker bowler, then you have to use the Machineroad app. It's quite obvious like that, isn't it? So the only
it
way
was a
I've
linked
got
question,
really,
yeah.
Only way I got good is by using it. But honestly, I do use it for that very reason, and it's important to know. We talk a lot about in cricket where you can turn up for a net session and you bowl. You say, okay, I'm going to bowl 12 Yorkers, see how I go, and then you leave the session and go, oh yeah, I think I nailed like most of them. And in reality, you probably hit half of them, and so that visibility is terrible because an arrogant cricketer will be like, oh, I'm the man, I've hit all my Yorkers. Whereas, with our app, we can now showcase that you actually missed most of them. So I certainly use it building up. I use it during the IPL as well. And I think, I love bowling Yorkers because I bowl quick, and I love bowling guys out because with these fantastic new bails and stumps now, they light up like fireworks. So but yeah, look, IPL is fantastic for many reasons. It's very challenging as a cricketer because you are away from your cricket circle. So playing for New Zealand, a lot of them are my mates, whereas I go to that side and I've got Baz as the coach, but I don't have my usual players and my usual support network. So you sort of learn to, I guess, deal with the ups and downs when being away from loved ones or close friends, and that's a challenge. But flip side of that, of course, is that you are rubbing shoulders with the greatest players on the planet. And I've had Pat Cummins at the top of my mark talking to me about slower balls and asking how I bowl it, and I think, Jesus, I don't know what you're asking me, mate. Yeah, like I don't know if you realize, bro, but you're number one test bowler in the world. Yeah, I'm certainly not. But I think just even after games, we have a casual beer or something and have conversations with Morgs or Baz or the list goes on, DK, and you talk to them about cricket and you talk to them about the game and what they think's going on and how they think that you could improve your game, and that's invaluable because there's no other place in the world you can get that kind of information and that feedback. So yeah, there's certainly pros and cons, but IPL is an absolute spectacle, and there's nothing better than playing in front of a packed Eden Gardens crowd, and yeah, bowling those Yorkers too. So love it.
At the moment, I'm sitting like 30 minutes away from the Eden Gardens ground. This is in Kolkata, by the way, where you are talking to me.
Oh, really?
And yeah, so it's like very close. But I'm hearing there won't be any crowd, or will be very limited crowd this time. Moving on to the next one. There'll be the T20 World Cup, and I'm sure Mitch is going to give you the pointers, reading your statistics and analytics on the app. So how do both of you brothers plan to work on this T20 World Cup? Because I know both of you are working individually on this app, and being the elder brother, he's going to be very careful that you have all the boxes ticked. So I'll start with Mitch. How do you plan to help him out with the Machineroad app before the T20 World Cup begins in India? And since India is a very tough place, so tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I think the key thing is it's an interesting point, but Lockie's probably not going to be in New Zealand for a majority of the time before he goes to the Indian World Cup. So I guess a great thing about the app is, and I'm not going to be giving him any pointers or telling him what to do, but the great thing about it is you can actually capture that information and you can actually share it through all the major social channels. So it could be through WhatsApp.
All right.
Could be through kind of Facebook. It could be, you can even download them and send those data files to whoever you want. So that was one of the intentions is, even from Lockie, and if he's dealing with the coaches back in New Zealand while he's overseas or it could be for anyone, right? The key thing is to be able to go and practice those skills that Lockie's been talking about, practice them by yourself, and then analyzing that, but then also sharing those results, sharing those videos with the coaches and actually having those open communications kind of like in a pretty instant manner as well. I think that's a key thing is, a lot of what we're trying to do is provide instant feedback. So with the app, you kind of record the balls and like within a minute and a half, you have that data file, you have the video, you have all the analytics that have come back. And so you can actually make decisions on the fly about how you improve yourself. And I think, being able to kind of enable people to not only capture it, but to share it very quickly and effectively will help them, progress a lot faster and prepare themselves for the big tournaments.
this IPL is one tournament which is going to be held in India, and T20 World Cup is also going to be held in India. So are you going to be executing some plans in the IPL which you may execute in the World Cup? I mean, are there any such deliveries, stock deliveries that you have thought of, trying it out? Because this is like a proper rehearsal space. I mean, you can just try out everything that's there in your mind. So is there something like that, Lockie?
I'm not that good that I have tricks up my sleeves. I use all my tricks during every game because, we play against some pretty good batters. So I try, if I learn a good trick, I use it because hopefully it might help me play better. I wish I had like these magical tricks up my sleeve, left-hand bowl or something that I could break out during a World Cup, but nah, nothing like that. But you're right. I think the IPL is fantastic because we can play at the stadiums where we'll likely play in the World Cup, and that experience is invaluable. Not all of the New Zealand team is over here playing and getting that experience. So as one of the players playing in the IPL, we can feed back experiences, conditions, what we think worked well at the IPL. Once again, you play in these teams where you've got a wealth of knowledge from every top team in the world. We've got the English captain as our captain. We've got DK, who's played, I think he played like some crazy 200 T20s for IPL or something like that. Then you have Shubman Gill, who's a young player coming through. He'll see the game differently. You've got Pat Cummins, who, his resume is ridiculous. So you have this wealth of knowledge, all different angles, coming up with different plans, different ideas to try win games. That experience, that knowledge base, I can then take back to New Zealand and go, hey, this actually worked in Ahmedabad, or this worked in Eden Gardens, or this worked at in Delhi, or whatever. And we can take that through the World Cup. But with most cricketers, I think you'll find we tend to be looking the next tournament ahead. There's so much pressure and so much expectation on each tournament and each game we play that we can't be looking too far ahead. And
right.
For now the focus will be on the IPL, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of learnings which we can take to the Black Caps, and hopefully we can go one step further than we did the last World Cup.